Okay, so I've got the straight fuchsia on my plate now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the shape of the droplet here. And I like to sort of curve the bottom of the drop sort of in, as rather than just making it go flush. I like to sort of bring it in and then like up and around. I find that gives a nice shape. So I've filled this area here in with a second layer of fuchsia. So it's just darkened it up a little bit. Because I have that background layer sort of already on, I can go ahead and just start applying the shadows and whatnot now, so that it's not going to take up any of the paint from underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and just dip into the titanium white. I just got a little bit on my brush and I made it into a nice fine tip. I'm just going to kind of come around this one side of the bubble, and I'm just going to lighten it up. So I'm going to do almost like a tadpole shape, and I'm going to wrap it around. Be thicker at the bottom. Once I sort of have that shape laid out, I went in, I patted off the excess paint off my brush, and that step's really important for this. And then I'm going to go ahead and sweep across this. And since I have that fresh layer of magenta already laid on there, it's going to actually blend in very nicely. I'm just sweeping back and forth. I'm going to try and keep that same shape though. I don't want it to change too much, so I'm just really laying on my shape right now. I'm going to do a second coat just because that didn't show up very vibrantly as I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and just add the thickest part down here and just trail and wrap it around. Make sure that you leave a little bit of a gap right here. I've left a little bit of the back of the bubble just kind of showing there. So that now I have my shape laid out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pat the excess white off of my brush. So I'm starting again with a clean dry brush, and I'm going to just flatten this out a bit, and then I'm going to sweep across it. You can add more pressure at the bottom, and then just try and keep that nice thin layer and just sweep upwards and let it taper out. I'm going to keep patting off my brush, and as I do that, I really just kind of squeeze it in between and wipe it all off so that there's not much paint left. And then just do all this very gently. Try not to bring too much of that red down. You want to sweep upwards and bring the light into the dark. So that's probably good. I'm going to rinse my brush, and then I'm going to dry it off again in the water. And then once my brush is a little bit more moist, I can blend in a little bit more. And that's pretty dark still. So I'm going to go ahead and add another layer and keep on adding the little swirl until it lightens up the one side. And if you want to come up this way and kind of leave this trail very thin if you can. I'm going to go back now. I've rinsed. Every time I go to blend, I pat my brush off. So I'm going to sweep it around and flatten it all out. And then I'm going to go wipe my brush again, come back, and I'm going to stay away from the outermost area and just kind of come in on the inside where the two colors meet and just gently wipe around again, and then you can kind of just start to sort of blend that all together. I've sort of patted it so that it's very subtle. You can't really see where the blending starts. I'll do another one like up close because I want to brighten it even more so you guys can see what I'm doing closer here. So I've got the fine tipped brush and I'm laying it flat, and then I'm going to come around and I'm going to go upward. Once I have the shape sort of laid out, I wipe off my brush, I come back in, and I'm going to just gently wrap that around. And each time I pick up paint, I'm going to wipe. Especially when you get to this area here, you really want to have a dry brush so that it's not carrying the paint over. So yeah, I'm just really gently sort of patting. There's a hard line here where the two colors meet, and as I go, I'm just sort of rubbing that, and I'm going to keep continuing to wipe. I just wiped again so that I don't have any paint on my brush, because if you have paint on your brush, it's not going to actually blend. You're just going to get whatever colors on your brush laid down on top. There we go. I kind of got rid of a lot of that hard line. It's blended nicely. I'd like it to be a little more, I'm going to just put this a little more gradient, like upwards more this way. So I'm going to add a little tick maybe down in this area to kind of really accentuate that it's brighter down there. And then I'm going to blend this one in and then upwards a bit. So I'm going to grab lots of that paint, and it's going to go sort of in and you're going to go in that swirled shape again. And bring it right up into the bubble there. Just see if I can have enough and bring it. There we go. So got it brought up into the paint a little bit, and then go all the way across and into the dark. There we go. You've got sort of a nice gradient effect there. Now, once you allow it to dry a little bit, you can come back in and re-highlight it. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to start darkening up this side. So this side here is going to be all dark. Your lightest area of the bubble is going to have the darkest black behind it. I'll do this deep area here, and you're going to have some black, very, very close to black mixed in. So I'm going to mix as dark as I can. I'm going to add a quarter of fuchsia and 3/4 black and just make a really, really deep black fuchsia color. And you really don't want a lot of paint on your brush, just a very fine amount. You're going to kind of just come around this corner here, and you're just going to add a little kind of line across here like that. And I'm going to keep sweeping back and forth, and it's almost going to be like a little slight C shape. So that's going to go there. Now I'm going to rinse my brush off at this point, because I don't want that solid black to go all the way around. I want it to sort of taper off and become lighter as it goes around. And then I'm going to actually come and I'm going to steal some of this black and just sort of carry it around like this. So I've grabbed the tail end of that, and I'm going to sweep it around. And the same goes for here. I'm going to steal this black and I'm going to just wrap it around. So if you can notice, this area here is a little bit more dark, and it's actually going to go opposite to this area here. So these two are kind of facing each other. This is your brightest area of your bubble, and this here is going to be kind of across from it. So you'll see now when I do this, it's going to make it pop a little bit. I'm going to add just a straight black, a tiny bit of paint to my brush, just the very tip of it. And I'm going to go along the curve of this and do the same thing where it's a black, but this is actually a black, so it's going to be a little more bold than this. And I'm going to bring it down and over like that. So that's going to be your darkest area. And you can see that this looked very dark initially, but it's actually lighter than this black. So this is the area, your lightest color on your bubble. You're going to have your dark behind it. Now that I have the dark laid on, I don't really need to do a whole lot of blending here, because this area of the, there happens to be this here, so it kind of changes what I need to do behind here. But normally you would have blended this outwards and buff it a little bit so it's not so bold, and it kind of blends outwards to pat that straight black and just sort of make that area more like a shadow, so you can see the red kind of coming through a little bit. And I'm going to go actually and re-highlight this one more time to really make it pop. This sort of angle right here. And then I'm going to actually wipe my brush again and just buff that a little bit. So I'll just bring that downwards. I'll just rub that a little bit. I'm just going to add a bit of a shadow underneath that one corner. You want that to be very, very dark, opposed from the other side of the bubble. I'm going to go back to that fuchsia and black mixture I had, and I'm going to go over this one more time, but this time it's going to be different. I'm going to actually drag it down just a teeny bit and re-add that little curve. And then I'm going to rinse my brush off, because we're going to be blending, and I'm going to dry it really well this time. And if you see, this is very delicate. You're just going to take the tip of your brush and sweep it And the idea is to keep sweeping until you can kind of almost drag it a little bit into the bubble. It might take a couple of applications to do that, so that one didn't really show very well, so I'm going to just add a little bit more black to my fuchsia. And I've got my brush again. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just highlight this area darker. Okay, and then, oh, a little bit kind of peeked over. And then I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to just sort of go over that. I'm just sweeping back and forth, and I'm staying away from the outermost edge, trying to darken up that one. There we go. So now I might leave that to dry because I can see some of the paint sort of wanting to peel up from the one edge. So I'm going to wrap this around like this, just a little bit more. And we'll let that dry a little bit, and we'll come back and we'll try and sort of darken up this one edge. But in the meantime, I'm going to just do one more light little effect right over here just to really brighten that up. And then once it's dry, I want to bring that shadow over a little bit more. And then we can kind of put our little, our really bright highlight in. I'm going to just go back and dip into the straight white. I'm going to add another little highlight here. But this time I'm also going to add just a teeny bit of the fuchsia kind of just right beside it to add a little bit of color. It's starting to get a bit whitewashed there where the true color of the water droplet isn't showing up now because it's so many layers of white are gone on top. So I'm just going to mix a bit of that in with the white, and so you'll get some pinks kind of showing up in there. And then I'll go back over now that I've got that pink laid out, and I'll just highlight that. You should see it kind of shine through a bit better. I'm going to add a little water to my brush, just spread a bit. And then I'm going to rub just over it again the same way as before. Carry it up and around. And I'm just going to buff this area up into the water droplet. And I'm just being very, very gentle as I go. I'll just keep sort of doing that until I get it where I really feel like it's popping. So I'm going to add just a bit more white down there. Just remember to keep wiping off your brush. I'm going to flatten this out first. Okay, there we go. So we're getting a nice pink glow there. And then this area here, I'm just going to see if I can drag this up. There. Okay. I'm starting to like the way that's looking. Okay, so you're still getting the initial shape, sort of nicely wrap around like that. This has had a chance to set, so I'm going to go back in with, say, like a straight fuchsia. And I'm just going to see if I can add it to this area here a little bit so it will have some stuff to blend. And right there you can see that's just darken it up. I'm just going to pat these edges so it's blended a little bit and keep some of that original color. So now we had just a dark fuchsia on the left side of the dewdrop, but it wasn't really popping enough for me. So what I'm going to do is actually put a black line along the left side again, and then also a fuchsia line right directly to the right of it. And then you're going to blend that black line down into the fuchsia. And you might not see me add the fuchsia line in the video because I did have to kind of edit out a little bit, but just add a little strip of fuchsia right beside on the right side. So I'm just doing that same thing where I'm just keep sweeping across the edge of it, and it's going to bring that dark over and into the side of it. I might even do a bit of a thicker band there. I'm just going to rub along until that's really blended and it's almost, you can't see the line of separation, it's just all kind of a gradient. So you really want to have that nice dark shadow there, because this is where you're going to be putting your light highlights, so you want it to really pop. So I'm just curving my brush into a good point here, and I'm going to dip right into the white, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do this very carefully, and I'm just going to do almost like a little the same curve as the bubble, but I'm not going to make it very big. And I'm going to try and pick the darkest area. So it's going to be sort of right across from where the darkest area is. So it'd probably be somewhere right around here, or from the lightest area. So it's probably going to be somewhere right around here. And you're going to put it right in the middle of that dark blackest sort of area, but bring it over from the edge just a little bit. So, and you'll see once I do this, it's really going to make the bubble pop. So there we go. Now that's starting to look more lifelike. The only last thing that I would sort of do is I would come back and I would kind of put in a little bit of the black just around this bottom edge here and make sure it's really nice and dark and bold. So when I do this, you're going to see that it's going to make it pop all the more. And I'm just going to do it right into the flower there, so it's like it's going right in behind. And I'll probably go along the bottom of this this as well with just a straight black, very thin line, just to kind of lift it and separate it from the leaf. There would be a nice shadow underneath the bubble. So, and normally I would sort of taper that and blend it and get it lighter and lighter, the back shadow, but since this is kind of already covering it, you can just do like a straight black right into the flower behind it, and then make it just sort of more black towards here, and it can gradually get lighter until it gets into the red. So there we have it. I'm just going to sort of kind of come back around here and kind of re-highlight this black, because I find it's not really standing out as much on this corner, so I want it to really pop. So I'm just going to add a very thin black line right here. And when we sort of blended, I grabbed a lot of the outer edge, which I didn't really want, but you want it to stay nice and bold. So I'll just sort of bring that up closer so you can see what I've done there. I've made that one side just really bold. So from close up, you can see all of the sort of the method and the imperfections to it, but when it's sort of back further, you see it looks very realistic and it's starting to take shape. Now, this area here looks almost like the bubbles kind of flopped over the one edge. I don't really like the way that looks, so I'm going to go ahead and just sort of shape that a little bit differently so that it's a little more flat on the bottom. And so it looks more like it's sitting on top of the petal there. So it sort of ties it in. Okay. I'll just reapply that black, and then I'm going to sort of come down a bit with that so it's not so bold in that one spot. Okay. So I'll just sort of blend that. You can use a brush for that. I'm a big finger painter, so okay. So I just blended that a little bit there. So there, now you can see the shadows are sort of all coming into play.